So thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate it. The room's a lot more full right now. So we had a really nice conversation for those who were unable to attend the 8 a.m. session. We had a really nice conversation about the 6 factors that students identify in terms of their support structures on campus. This particular PowerPoint is a little more nuts and bolts. It's like the meat, right? So this particular PowerPoint delivers suggestions that literally came from our focus groups and interviews with students related to how all faculty and staff on a California community college campus could support student success. Now there are 2 documents that you can reference. One is the 10 ways, and this is what our conversation is about right now, 10 ways everyone can support student success. The second document is 10 ways faculty can support student success. Both documents are available on the RP Group website, and we have both documents printed here for distribution. So, but if you need any, other reference materials, please feel free to ask me. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our 10 ways, and this will be a little more interactive. So please feel free to, munch away on your lunch, and because we'll be in conversation very, very soon. We're going to zip through the 10 ways and then talk to you about what you do on your campuses. So again, just really quickly, remember that one of the key points from the 8 a.m. talk is that we as faculty and staff see organizational charts in terms of who does what is the role of this particular person, administrator, staff member, faculty member, counselor on campus. We see we see organizational charts that break down into student services, instruction, special populations, and maybe more, president's office. I mean, we all know we have many organizational charts on our campus. Students see people, they see human beings, and they also, not only do they see people, then they experience the engagement or the encounter with that one person. So we talked about that frontline staff person in DSPS from this very campus, IBC, who is now being broadcasted statewide, that he or she is just incredibly gracious and supportive, right? And has student success on the brain. So it's really important, again, to know that everyone plays a role, both faculty and staff. So 10 ways everyone can help. Again, this came right from the students themselves. So ask students why they are in college. And the way we've broken these out is we link them back to one of the factors that we see as researchers. We feel this connects back to the factor, and in our conversations about certain factors with students, they may have provided this suggestion. So ask students why they are in college. And again, we saw with one of our examples in the 8 a.m. talk that this helps direct a student. Why are you here? It's such a simple question, but we know it can have a really powerful impact. The second is to help students navigate their way through the different offices on campus. It's very complex, right? College is complex. Whether you are at a 2-year, a 4-year, a technical college, I don't care if you're at a culinary arts school, anywhere you go, college is complex. And it's very difficult, especially for first-generation learners who don't know exactly which offices to access to get enrolled in classes and to get into a classroom to meet with a faculty member. This came through in interview after interview with our nearly 900 interviewees for this research study. Helping them navigate helps us meet the connected factor, directed, and engaged. Because once we can get them connected, hopefully we see their engagement rates increasing, right, and improving because they actually know where to go and with whom to connect. Connect students with services or resources that can help them with their career exploration and goal setting. This is another really important, I would say, student suggestion for us. Time and time again, what we heard in a lot of our interviews was that we have some really strong advocacy programs for students on campus. Let's take EOPS as an example. When those students come into a focus group interview, they have a lot to say about how helpful their counselors are in helping them develop an ed plan, kind of understand or discern career goals. The EOPS counselors play an instrumental role, and we realize that it's very difficult, right? One of the sort of pushbacks that we received was, at least I did from a project advisor, was I can't replicate EOPS across campus. I can't do it. It's too expensive. But there are other little things that we can do to help students understand that they could have a career in mind, that they could project, get them on some sort of trajectory, whether it's in class and just opening up with like a 5 to 10 minute conversation about, let's talk about what you want to do. What do you want to do after you attend IBC or Saddleback? And then 4, have high expectations for students and hold them accountable. And we talked about this at 8 a.m. We talked about the fact that students revealed to us that they did not like being talked down to, number 1. They did not like being disrespected, and they wanted to be treated as adults. Now, I'm hoping that the majority of faculty don't do that, but clearly that was communicated to us in our interviews, was that occasionally they feel like it's almost like they're not good enough and someone is validating that. Like, you're right, you're not going to succeed in this class. So students reported that they wanted to be held to very high expectations, and they wanted to be encouraged to meet those expectations. And again, for first-gen students, this is also quite challenging because they might not have anyone in their family who has attended college who has met those expectations, so they don't know exactly what that looks like. Okay, so ask students for feedback about their experiences, including what works and what needs improvement. So this really sort of percolated in our conversations around the classroom. It's everywhere. But in relation to instructional faculty, again, we talked a little bit about this at 8 a.m. Students want to know that their opinion matters in the classroom, that when they give feedback, when they're invited to give feedback to a professor, that it means a lot to them, and that there might be action taken on the professor's part to either incorporate the feedback, to acknowledge the feedback, to on some level recognize, okay, so my students didn't exactly like that, so let me change X, Y, or Z. Again, we're not expecting at all broad sweeping changes, and we know that students can definitely critique us for lots of reasons, and we don't need to take action on every single critique. But again, I think it's about inviting the feedback and showing that, yes, when you do provide feedback, I do listen. I do take it into account on some level. And then encouraging participation in out-of-class activities. We had lots of students talk about the 1 or 2 faculty members on campus who led student clubs, right? So, and that faculty member, instructional faculty member, counseling faculty, that person really helped energize students around that particular club or organization. I heard stories of them even connecting to the 4-year via that particular club. Let's take a psychology club, for example, because that is one that rose to the surface. And you're sitting right here, and so I'm thinking of you.
I'll totally take over.
That the students felt so connected because their faculty member was like a champion for this particular club, which made them excited to participate. So again, it goes back to, oh, I'm only going to be here 2 years. Why should I participate in that psychology club when really, if we can get students to increase their participation in these extracurriculars, they will understand the importance of it. Again, it's also about transparency. Why is it important for them to be involved in clubs? They might not know the answer to that. They might not know because it will serve as an access point for you to the 4-year university. It could even spark something related to graduate school for some of our students. So really important in terms of engaging them in extracurriculars outside of the classroom. Okay. 7 is help students build peer support networks, and in this particular domain, we got lots of examples that included like peer study groups, study teams in class, even helping students kind of figure out which teams they should be on in the classroom. Oftentimes students don't know friends or partners in the classroom, so they might not know who to pair up with. So again, faculty members serving in like a facilitative way to deliver that, to help students access peer support networks. And then showing students that you're proud to work at your college. And again, we talked about this in the earlier session this morning. The student who approached us and said, why should I feel connected to my institution when I don't even see my faculty members being connected? And the example was, we talked about like, how many hours do you hang out on campus? How many hours do you, outside of the classroom, right? We know students oftentimes run to their classroom from their car, then run right back to their car and go home. But to feel connected, you need to do a little bit more than that. Hopefully you're spending a little more time on campus outside the classroom. And a student literally said, but I see my faculty members running to class from their car and then running back to their car after class. So why should I do it if they're not modeling it for me? And yeah, they're pretty profound, right? I mean, they like hit the nail on the head, and yes, I was like, okay, this focus group's over. It's a very poignant reality, yes.
Well, did you explain to this student that the professor is obliged to do that? He or she is a freeway flyer.
Right,
So
and they
you
know.
need to stop that.
Yes.
You need to start having only 25% of freeway flyer
Right.
instead of what it is now, 55%.
Yes. I think one thing that students are, there are so many characteristics to describe our student population. One thing I'm most proud of is that they're empathetic and they understand faculty. They don't understand faculty life as in they're in your shoes, but they understand that faculty members have multiple demands because they themselves have multiple demands. So yes, they understand that very clearly. And then 9, recognizing the value of students' talents, abilities, skills, and experiences to connect them with opportunities to contribute on campus. So we had students who really glowed when they talked about their work as a volunteer and as a mentor. Largely mentoring, when students have the opportunity to mentor other students, that is when you see a huge confidence boost, right? You see the chest puff out. Students are very proud of themselves to be able to mentor other students who are newer in the system. And they have learned from their experiences, whether it's a couple years on campus, 1 year on campus, and they take great pride in being invited to be a mentor. Significant pride. And then 10, communicate and demonstrate to students that you care about their success. One of the things that we also kind of touched on this at 8 a.m., we all have a method to our madness. And we understand it internally as professionals, but students do not understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So being as transparent as possible. And honestly, this study has impacted my own teaching where I say, okay, I'm offering this objective exam on this day for this particular group of learners. I'm offering a paper to write for this particular group of learners. I feel like I'm much more clear about why I have certain practices in my classroom because I want students to know I'm not offering the objective exam to torture you. I'm offering it so that I can target an array of learners in my class and hopefully everyone can succeed. Students want us to be very transparent about why we do the things that we do. So, and let me, we're going to touch on 3 ways faculty can help students succeed, and in that I have a suggestion. Okay. So this was our 10 ways everyone Now, we have a 10 ways faculty, but we're only going to touch on 3 today. And then we want to talk to you about what you're doing on your campuses. So these are the 3. Now, the first one is provide regular and meaningful feedback. This, across the P20 pipeline, research shows this surfaces as one of the top areas, bones of contention for all students, that they don't get frequent and regular and meaningful feedback. This is very hard because we have so many students, and so it's also something all of us as faculty are trying to work on and do our best to deliver really meaningful, constructive feedback to students, because that is how they're going to improve, is through hopefully through our solid recommendations. So this is one that came up in the majority of our meetings with students. The second is create opportunities for students to provide feedback on their experience. So it's not only receiving feedback from faculty, but it's then giving feedback to faculty. And they like that two-way exchange. It was very important to them as we were doing these interviews. And then the third is really about, from my purview, it's really about culturally relevant instruction. It's how do we tap into the skills, the abilities, and the history of our students so that they feel more inclined to engage in our classrooms, they feel validated in our classrooms, and they feel like they have a chance for success in our classroom because what they know, the history of who they are as a human being, actually matters to the curriculum. That's number 3, and it came across loud and clear, especially with our underrepresented minority groups, which we talked a little bit about the fact that we were trying to pay special attention to Latino and African American learners. So those are the 10 ways. Those are the three of the 10, but the full 10 are listed and floating around the room. Okay. So what we'd like you to do right now is get with a partner who is not from your college. So if you're at Saddleback, IVC, if you're at IVC, Saddleback, and near you. You don't all, not everyone has to like move up and roam around. I know your lunches are really important. But let's just talk about what you're currently doing. What are you doing on campus? And I know as you mingle and integrate IVC and Saddleback, you're probably doing a lot of really cool brainstorming. So I'd love to hear what you are doing. Anyone? Yes.
I teach counseling here, and
Can you say your name?
Tiffany.
Great.
Tiffany with an I, not a Y. A couple of us. And in my classroom every day we start off the class by saying our highs and lows. I remember doing that at the dinner table and I hated it. It was the lamest thing ever. But there's some days where you're super stoked and you gotta tell someone something, and then there's other days when you're not so stoked and you just need to get something off your chest. So we do it in class, and some days they're all about it and other days it's like pulling teeth. But the best feeling for me is them see me in the hallway and be like, I have a high for today, and I'm like, yes, and that makes my day. So, I mean, I don't go in trying to get something out of it, but
yes,
unexpectedly I do. And I think that they appreciate it too, so.
I love highs and lows, because I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? But we do highs and lows too at the dinner table, so I just have to share. So my 4-year-old, we're like, what's your high, what's your low? My friend ruined my game, that's his high. And what's your low? My friend ruined my game, because he doesn't know how to separate the two yet. We're getting there, but it's so cute. It's so applicable. I never thought of doing it in the classroom, and I'm going to do it in the classroom. I actually teach tomorrow. That's when my students go to school on the weekends. So I'm doing that tomorrow. I love that idea.
And at first they're like, so you kind of got
corny.
Yeah, exactly. But then once they catch on to it, then they are super stoked about it, and they shine.
Hands down, that's fantastic. Okay, other ideas?
So Diane?
We're all going to follow Tiffany now.
Yeah. I'm Dennis Gordon. I'm the new acting director of Student Life. One of the things I like to do is item number 2, where we help students navigate their way through. We have a ASIBC meeting once a week. And what I plan on doing now is inviting someone from each of the different departments, EOPS, DSPS, and have them just come in and talk for 5 minutes about their department and how it interacts with the rest of the departments on campus and how they can have access to it. I think that'd be a great help because we get a lot of students, of course, through Student Life Department, and having that opportunity to come and talk to 50, 60 students at a time and explain how their department functions and operates and what how those different departments can access the students and vice versa, I think would be really helpful.
Really helpful, the information sharing, right? I mean, we all kind of operate in a bubble and we think we're out there spreading the word, and we're not as good about that as we should be. So yes, I think that's a great idea. Yes.
I'm Doug Barr. I'm a counselor and I teach career exploration at Saddleback College. And for years, I've always made a seating chart for my class to help me learn their names as quickly as possible. And I also have them send me an email in the first week and tell me something additional about themselves. I do a number of things. This year, finally, it dawned on me that not only do I need a seating chart, but the whole thing is networking in today's world. And I said, you got to get used to meeting new people. And what I had them do this semester is that everybody's making a seating chart, so they have a chart with everybody else's name in the class. And then every time we break down into a small group, it becomes a habit with them, but initially it's like pulling teeth to get them to introduce themselves to each other. But it's all about just sort of getting to know other people. And I think in relationship to being engaged, it's not us being engaged with them and them being engaged with us, it's them being engaged with other students as well.
Absolutely. That's the peer support network that you're doing. And it's interesting that you're saying that because in my head I'm thinking you're creating a map of your classroom. Just like we would need a map in our community to get around. You're creating a map for your students and they can learn each other's names and they can navigate that map all semester long and meet in different teams. Right? Because they actually know someone, they can say someone's name. I mean, they're oftentimes embarrassed because they don't know the name, they don't know who's sitting next to them, so they don't want to ask, will you be in my group? But you're opening that door for them and giving them a map. So I love it. I love it. Other ideas, things that you practice? Yes.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Morgan. I'm a counselor at Saddleback, and Alice and I were talking about how to get feedback on a regular basis. And when I do a lot of activities in my class, and so you give directions and they're very clear to me, and yet how do I know if they got it? So we vote. So 5 fingers, you got it. 4, iffy. 3, a little more iffy. 1, you're on another planet. Maybe because they weren't listening or I was on a different planet.
Right.
So then, because a lot of students, you ask, do you have any questions? Oh, nobody's going to say anything. So this way I can see quickly, and then I can see who does get it, and then I have them explain it so that we have another person, like you said, they can mentor and feel, proud of what they've
That's
done.
right. That's right. I really, really like that. So later when I'm on the 405, I'm going to be like this.
I'm Marina Amini from Saddleback College. I'm from the English department. And Matt showed me a picture on his phone. Don't worry, it was appropriate. It was a picture that he took during break time in his class, where I would say all of the students in the picture had their phones out, and they're like this, texting or emailing or looking at something. And so it used to be that students would use break time to talk. And those conversations would lead to engagement and peer interactions and nice support systems amongst the peers. And so we kind of brainstormed ways to get students to talk to each other. Just even in the context of our teaching, whether it's an icebreaker activity in the beginning of the semester that forces them to, address each other and get to know each other, or interview each other, or arrange themselves in such a way, or grouping them, kind of making them get up from their little corner of the room and go to other locations and meet their peers.
I really like that conversation because I feel like we all struggle with that very issue. Whether it's in the classroom or walking across the street, we don't even make eye contact anymore, right? Because we're so busy looking down at our phones. So
It used to be noisy in the class. Right?
Yeah.
You would come in before class started or during breaks, and it would be, they'd be talking and laughing and engagement, and now it's just quiet, and people are on their phones or their laptops or, chats.
Yeah, the silence is eerie too. Okay, yes and then yes.
I'm Craig. I'm in Saddleback. I'm in the admissions office. I have a unique perspective on students in that the only time I ever deal with students are when there's a problem. I'm responsible for the data coming out of admissions and records and kind of like the technical systems there. So whenever there's a problem, I'm the go-to person on campus. Students get to me and they're distraught, pissed off, hungry, and upset. And before I worked here at Saddleback, I've been at Saddleback for 5 years, I was in customer service and technical support for a large technology company, which also gave me the background of working with people that were having problems. So I've learned through my years and years and years of speaking with people that are angry, there's only two things they really want. They want empathy, and they want to know that you care. They want to know that you understand what their problem is, and you're willing to help them. So every call that I take on the phone, every student that I talk to, I always say, hello, my name is Craig, I'm with Saddleback College. How are you doing today? And they'll say, I'll usually hear a pause and they'll say, well, I'm doing okay, but here's my problem. Or they'll say, I'm not doing okay, and here's my problem. And then I'll say, okay, well, I understand that problem. Let me get you the solution for that. And I've got people on the phones that were screaming and yelling at other people, and the moment they hear that they have somebody listening to them, that their demeanor changes completely, and they're ready to work, and they're ready to get to the solution. So it's all in interactions.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I'm so glad we hired you. Oh my gosh, you are perfect. Okay, we had a hand right there.
Hi, I'm Jane. I teach in biology at Saddleback. And one of the things, I guess I'm the only classroom instructor in our group today, but we talked about how I'd like to interact more with the students. I teach hybrid classes, and right now I'm only the online part, so I don't actually see them face-to-face anymore. But I want to do Google Hangouts on the weekends to do reviews. And it's been pointed out that it's just like ridiculously, stupidly easy how to do this, and I just downloaded the app and you're ready to go. And apparently you don't even have to be, when the students come on for this, they can come on or come off. You just say you're on for this certain amount of time. And I think even just by me offering to do it on a Sunday tells them that, they don't know that I'm working all Sunday anyway. They don't see that. So, I had a student once recently who said, you do this on a Sunday? Well, yeah, I'm working on your class anyway. But this is a visible way to say, I'm available to you on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon or whatever. And do it for a couple hours. They could call in. They could be on the video or not, just by voice or whatever. It's free. Everybody's got a mobile device of some sort to get on with. And so that's kind of something we talked about.
It's a fantastic idea. Especially because you are letting them know you are working. You're trying to seek their input on a weekend. Not everyone works on weekends. Not everyone's expected to work on weekends. But if you are and you're making yourself available to students, I think it's a really smart idea to put it out there for them concretely so they can log in at a certain time. Especially as an online instructor, because it's harder for you to increase engagement with them when you're not face-to-face with them, right? You really have to find more nuanced ways to increase student support for online students. We did not study online students within this research study. They were not part of our population. That we brainstormed a list of part 2s of Student Support Redefined, and online students are part of our part 2. We are also thinking of taking this exact study and applying it to faculty and staff. So just as much as our students want to feel valued, our faculty and staff want to feel valued with a special sort of emphasis geared toward part-time faculty and staff, because we know we have marginalized communities even within our professionals, and we shouldn't have that, because in order for students to be successful, our professionals, us as practitioners, need to be successful. So maybe we work backwards a little bit, but students are obviously our priority. But yes, we'd like to take this whole study and apply it to faculty and staff.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The biggest thing I've learned from you today is that I need to support our part-timers. And all these things that you just outlined for students need to go straight to the part-timers. And that way the part-timers will feel included in the community. And so that was my personal aha moment, is that I have to figure out a way to include the part-timers in the health science.
Yeah, we need to do a better job at that. Yeah. And we'd like, again, to do a study so that we can do 10 ways to support our faculty and staff for success. Hopefully we'll have that 3 years from now.
I'm Juan Avalos, Vice President of Student Services at Saddleback. My office is also known as the Buck Stops Here office, right? I think much like Craig, most of my interactions with students aren't always positive. One thing that I want to comment on is, we talk about some of the factors, and one of the factors being students feeling cared for. One of the things I've always found pretty interesting is that I think a conversation about what does care look like, we need to have that, as a state, because I think sometimes we often believe that caring for a student means giving them what they want or having them walk away feeling happy, and that's not necessarily accurate. The work that I do and the students that I work with, there's a lot of things that I deal with that are not happy things, and the solution is not a happy solution, but they walk away feeling cared about, and it's bizarre that you could, on the one hand, show and demonstrate extreme care and concern, yet be very rigid about your accountability of a student. And it's almost contradictory, but I think it's very fascinating. There's a particular story that pains me that I know about it, because it's, I think, probably the grossest example of the disconnect there. And it was when I was the Dean of Counseling in Sacramento. One of the things I dealt with was students who were in discipline. There was one particular student that came in that night. As I was in my office, there are counselors that chair that general area. I heard the student come in. They're having a conversation with the counselor, and you could tell that they knew each other, because they were talking first name, all that good stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So we walk in, and one of the things that I always did in probation was we have images of all of the probation, all the times they did it. So a student can't say, like, this is my first time I want an opportunity. It's like, we gave you 20 opportunities. You've been in probation for 16 years. Okay? And what pained me, the first thing that came out of my mouth to a student was, I need to apologize to you because the college did you a disservice. How is it that someone that has such a personal relationship with someone is allowed to flounder for 16 years? The person said, I feel ashamed. Appropriate feeling. You could have had a master's, you could have had a doctorate. Now let's talk about what we need to do moving forward. What she told me was kind of fascinating, because she said, thank you for telling me this was not okay. And I think sometimes we forget about that part, and I think we need to get back to, sure, if the solution warrants happy, happy. If the solution warrants not happy, turn it around, I'm here to support you. We need to do that. And I think sometimes we send mixed messages to students.
I completely agree. And I really appreciate that comment, because it echoes our findings that students want to be told the truth. And they want to be held to high expectations. And as you talk about care, and I know you'll lead this conversation really effectively, remember that the pushback from our readership was, but that's mothering, that's enabling, and that's coddling. And it doesn't have to be any of those things, which is what you are saying. It's not that, actually. It's telling the truth and supporting someone. It's holding their hand, but being extremely tough, but being fair, right? It's being fair. So thank you for that. We probably have time for a couple more. Okay, yes.
One of the things that I think is important is, Kathy Dan from Saddleback, but not the one, that was somebody else. respecting my students the way I expect respect.
Yes.
And that goes farther than just saying, I think you're a human being and I respect that. But when I make a mistake, I apologize. I show up to class on time. When someone emails me and says, oh no, my car broke down and I can't come to class, I email back going, oh, I'm so sorry, that sucks. Are you okay? Because the minute I start assuming that these are all excuses is the minute I'm going to have a catastrophic event and nobody will be supportive of me.
This is about self-serving.
Right. I feel like if I expect them to respect me by not sending me ridiculous emails that say, well, I should get an A because I showed up every day and that's it, right? I then respect them by saying, I see that you worked really hard on this assignment. It didn't quite meet the level, but I wanted to tell you that I saw what you put into it and I really am proud of it. So I respect them equally.
Right.
And I'm surprised when I see faculty talking to students where there's like an anger or something or some
Condescending.
and it's
Well, there's
not
a power
respectful.
struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
That I think a lot, I think that we need to work through as a community.
Yeah.
Hi, Kathy Schmeider, IDC. One of the things, I've had students over a long period of time come back to me periodically from wherever they've gone afterwards saying that either that they were successful where they went because I held them to very high standards, for which they were very angry at the time. But I was right, and that is what they needed when they went to Berkeley or Cornell or wherever they went. But the other one is, over the years, many students coming back saying, one of the most useful things you did for me was not to give me a grade because I was intelligent, but to actually grade the work that I did. And to tell me you could have done better. I know you could have done better. I recognize in you that you had the capacity to do better, but you did not. And they appreciate that. It is not good for student success to give people good grades. And student completion doesn't mean necessarily getting a certificate or whatever other prize we happen to give them. Student success and student completion is a much longer road for them, especially here at the community college, where although we have some students for whom we are the top of their formal education, for many of our students they go on to professional schools or to academic institutions from us, and they need to be able to succeed there. Giving them a certificate which does not in fact give them a platform on which to succeed in their future is not completion, really. It might look good in our statistics, but it's not completion, and it certainly is not promoting student success. And I agree with Juan, and I'm sure others of you who have said or are thinking, sometimes student success means failing a student. Sometimes student success means making a student repeat until they get it right. Sometimes student success means telling them that they need to remediate before they're ready for your course. But lowering our standards doesn't do it. When I begin my anatomy class, for where most of the students taking it, it will be the last time they take anatomy before they touch patients. They'll take other courses, but they won't take anatomy again. And because most of them are not going to medical school or dental school, this isn't even the right course if they are planning to go there. So for most of my students, this is it for anatomy. I say to them, I may really like you and want to go out to coffee with you, but if I'm going to feel afraid waking up in an emergency room seeing you looking on me, I'm not passing my class. And I think that that's equally true, although it's self-evident in a clinical program or preclinical program that I teach in. But I think it's equally true for all of us. If we're sending people out into the world to become adults, we want them to be adult. And if it's an English class or a history class or a math class or a you name it class, the reason that we're asking them to take our course is because we think it's important for them to become adult members of our society. And no matter what the topic is, no matter what the discipline, we call them disciplines, don't we? No matter what the discipline is, above all, we're teaching them discipline.
Yes, I would love, and then I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'd love for you to think about what you could start tomorrow or next week that you are not doing? Just a couple of examples I'd love to hear. Okay,
Hi,
yes.
my name is Parisa Soltani. I'm happy and proud to say I'm an EOPS counselor here at IVC. And a lot of what Kathy was saying really resonates with me in the sense that when you look at your students in your classrooms or the ones that come into your office, admissions and records, career center, we have to look at them as a whole student. There's so many components, and as counselors, many of us have the privilege of looking at their applications for college, and it's not all about their grades. So when we're talking about what is success, it's not a 4.0. We've seen students that have 4.0s not get into Berkeley. So it's many components, and our college provides a spectrum of lessons for students, whether it's in the classroom, in student services, in the parking lot. There's so many things, and so for me, it's really important for us, no matter what our role is, to see the student as a whole and what components really make up that student and create that educated citizen that in turn will be a doctor, a nurse, our lawyer, our dentist. So to me, that's the most important. So I just wanted to,
Yeah.
say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Ideas for things that you're not doing that you'd love to start immediately, whether it's tomorrow in Google Hangout or Monday?
How about getting in our mindset to get funding? Because this doesn't come automatically. Having successful students is not cheap, I think is what you said.
Yes, it's not. Vincent Tinto said that when he visited our campus.
Oh, yeah.
Student success is expensive. Yeah. EOPS costs money.
That's right.
Why our students
That's
are more
right.
successful.
Yes. And we're singing your praises in all of our interviews, so yes. Other ideas? The hunt for funding's a good one.
Yeah.
How about learning your audience? Because I hear all this nurturing stuff, but I don't really see directed and focus in some of our activities, even for the state.
So how would you learn your audience? Like what's one thing you might do?
Well, Rebecca does an excellent job, like in the class. She actually, the first day, she actually says, what are your expectations from this class? What do you want to learn? Even ask about some of the activities. Maybe flip your syllabus around so it's not such a hard structure, because then you meet the needs for the students.
Right, right. I really like that idea. It's a great idea. They can also do a short blurb or narrative, like a paragraph on what they expect of you on the first day for you to take home. I've tried that before. I like that idea a lot. One year, I tried an idea that a faculty colleague had at Santa Barbara City College, where I wrote a letter to my students with like a little background about myself and what was meaningful to me about Santa Barbara City College, and asked them to write me back. And not in the same form, but it was kind of a model for what I was hoping to get, and it was incredible. So I was really glad that I followed my colleague's advice in doing that. Senior colleague, I took this idea from her and stole it and ran with it. So other ideas? Yes.
I'm very concerned about my student not having a book. If I were to choose, I'm teaching Spanish and sometimes French, I wouldn't have the book because the grammar is the same thing anyway. You don't need a book to help somebody to speak another language. But if we are to choose the book, can we try to choose something that is not that expensive? I talked about that one day, and the response was, well, they know they are in college, they have to pay for, or they buy Starbucks, how do you call that coffee place? Yeah, they buy $5. I mean, if once in a while they bought one, that doesn't mean they can afford a textbook that's over $200.
Right. Yes. Any other ideas or thoughts on before as we wrap up? But any final thoughts? Okay, I would love to hear from you in the back. Yes. Yeah. No. Oh, you first.
In regards to helping students create, I'm sorry, I'm Denise Sonnenberg from the foundation here. in regards to helping students create a peer network. I learned this kind of the hard way in that there was an article in the LA Times magazine or art section a couple Sundays ago, and it was on a guy named Mike Kelly. Well, I went to high school with Mike Kelly, and it sadly said that he had passed away. He committed suicide. I didn't know Mike Kelly. I grew up in Michigan. I went to high school with him. He moved out to LA. I still didn't know him. If I had created a network like LinkedIn that's available when I was in high school, I might have had a chance to get to know him. And that's what I would like to see students do now is take advantage of those people that you're in your class. You don't know who's going to be a president of a company someday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that really echoes what you're saying too, because I love that idea. I always say, you don't know who's going to be serving on your hiring committee, so be nice to people in your
Hi, my name is Mike Eagles, counseling faculty at Saddleback College, and I think one thing all of us can do to, effectively implement some of these 6 factors tomorrow is use the 2 ears that we have and the 1 mouth that we have. We should listen twice as much as we speak. And I think that's something that we take for granted. So we have this amazing tool in front of us to understand and connect, to value what our students are saying, and implement change in their lives. Thank you.
I love that. And that was a nice wrap up. That was fantastic. So I'm going to let Rupa close this lunch session out.